features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to a wet, windy and quite airy African dawn. The killer bees are in search of the Nkuhuma pride. This is Safari Live. Ready.
Standing by.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the tent today, where I'm very grateful for the cover that is over my head. My name is James Hendry, as you can see there, and on camera today, David. Hello, David. Welcome back to the tent.
Thank you, James.
As you can see, I have my head torch on account of the fact that it is a very sort of bleak and dark and misty morning. So while the others are out there searching about in the wet, we will be in here, as Brent will no doubt tell you every single time he links to me, toasty warm in the tent. Hashtag Safari Live is the best way for you to get hold of us. It would be wonderful to hear from you. I nearly said hashtag Safari Live again, which would have been superfluous because I've just said that before. On a day like today, when sometimes the game can be a bit quiet, it's always nice to fire up the odd discussion. So please ask us any questions, send us any comments that you might have about Africa or the safaris. Right, pajamas. As I say, it's a very quiet day. It's very difficult to find animals. We're 2 minutes into the drive. She has something already.
And a very good morning to all of you, and welcome on our sunrise safari. And I have such a nice surprise for you. But before we reveal our surprise, my name is Jamie. This morning VM is on camera with me, back from his brief leave. And VM said to me we should go to Treehouse Dam. I agreed. I thought Treehouse Dam was a lovely idea. And what a good suggestion that was. Oh, there's a hippo there. Hello, hippo. I did not expect to see you there. Huh, that changes my approach ever so slightly, because on the far side of our dam are two tiny little creatures looking back at me, and that would be Hosana and Xongile, waiting patiently for Mom to return. Hello, you two. What have you been up to this evening or last night? Have you been here the whole time? Yes. You'll see that I have got the spotlight on them, and we generally don't spotlight these leopard cubs as it starts to get dark. However, it is now getting light, so it's light enough for them to see. So it's absolutely fine. We're just using them to illuminate and to find them. Now we're going to get a bit closer and try and see what they're up to, and then take the spotlight off them. Hey, you two, are you playing in the bushes? You gorgeous creatures. Alright, so let's take the light off them. The hippo worries me worries me is not the word I wanted to say. The hippo just changes our approach slightly. We're going to give him a little bit of extra room. He's very, very cut up and scarred along his back. And because this waterhole is very, very empty... Oh, look at that. That's bad. Because this waterhole is quite empty, he's going to feel very insecure, which in turn makes him quite unpredictable. So we're going to give him plenty of room. Hey, boy? Sorry, man. You look like you've had a really rough night. Looks as though he's been in a bar fight last night. Perhaps with some of the Chitwa hippo. Here, let us think this through. And go. Two little ones are dashing backwards and forwards. I doubt he was terribly impressed with their presence here. Okay. Let me just think about this quickly. I think I'm going to try and go in from here. Just make sure that we've got room to get out if we need to. So, Karula, obviously wherever she may be, the mother of the two cubs that we're looking at now, she obviously hasn't been successful recently in terms of little ones. You're making my life a little tricky here. They're now going to the other side of the dam. I don't want to get too close to this dam. I just have a feeling with this hippo that he's not going to appreciate it at all. Look at these two. You're having a wonderful time. Oh, and you're making the hippo cross. I bet you've been unsettling him all evening. Hello. And the two of them are playing frantically over there. Which way are you going to go now? Have you gone back to your bushes? Let's just keep an eye on our hippo friend. Luckily, we've got some really subtle breaks to announce our approach. He's gone down. I'm going to just stick for now, and just make sure that we don't get into his space. Now, Gil, you wanted to know, while we watch our leopards in the half darkness, Gil, you wanted to know whether or not this hippo is a baby hippo. No, it looked to me like a bull hippo, a fully grown male hippo. And the fact that he's all scratched up and scarred does kind of reinforce that. In times of pressure, sorry, I'm just watching him carefully. He just flopped and changed direction to come and face us. In times of pressure, which of course this drought would classify as, it is an exceptionally difficult time for our hippo, and they start to fight a lot over space, the limited resource of water, and that does tend to make them very unpredictable, very upset and grumpy, and generally more defensive than they might otherwise be. So I'm just keeping a very close eye on him. Leopard cubs are right next to the dam, and until it gets a bit lighter, we're just going to keep our distance. Try to decide if maybe perhaps it would be best to go to the other side of the dam. Jamie, you want to know if the hippo would hurt the cubs. The answer is no. He wouldn't. I mean, he would if he could, but the chances of him being able to catch leopard cubs is next to nothing. So they've probably been teasing and baiting him all night, just playing with him. It's something new for them to experience while Mom's been away. They've probably been up to the side of the water. He might have chased them a few times. If he could catch them, because they are predators, he probably would kill them. And there are lots and lots of cases, recorded cases, of hippo aggression towards lots of other animals around the waterhole. There's frequent reports of hippo killing things like antelope that have strayed into the water, and anything like that. Here come the leopard cubs, dashing across. Hello, you two. So if he could catch them, he would hurt them, but there's no way he can catch them. Not a chance, not these two. They are too agile and quick. I'm hoping, for our sake, that the little leopard cubs are going to come towards us, but while we wait for them to do that, let's go over to Brent and find out what his plans are.
Well, I've got some bad news, and unfortunately we've tracked the Incahomes through across the northern edge of our Traverse area into Buffalo's Hook, but some good news. Well, it's going to be a bit of a silhouette this morning, but we saw them yesterday on the sunset safari, but sitting in the tree there are some white storks. Now, I was hoping, well, they might still, a little bit later on the safari, be down on the ground and hopefully feeding off all the insects that abound after this rain. Now, there we go. Aaron in New Zealand was saying he saw there was white storks on the sunset safari, was hoping they were going to be on the sunrise safari. So, Aaron, your wish is answered. There we go. They're looking a little bit bedraggled, wet and cold, but I'm sure they're going to be very excited to take advantage of all the hohos, insects and bugs that have exploded after the rain, and I'm quite sure we might even find them moving across quarantine at some point over the next week or so. But for now, while it's still dark, they're going to try avoid leopards and lions and things and stay up in the tree. Now, since the Nkuhumas have gone into Buffalo's Hook, there's always a chance they might cross back in this area. They often do a loop like that. So while we keep searching down our northern boundary, let's go see what James is up to in his tent.
Sorry, I'm a bit flustered. We had a hyena outside and we were very much hoping to show her to you. I think it was a big hyena. But unfortunately, she took one look at the lens of David's camera and decided that it was much too much to be on TV this early in the morning. She hadn't prepared herself, and so she left. Now, this is quite an interesting thing we have found here. It is a venomous scorpion. I'll just show it to you there first before we put it under the microscope. A Europlectes. And Europlectes you don't want to stand on. It's unlikely to kill you, but it will give you a very nasty bite, which will hurt a great deal. And after it's hurt you a great deal, it will probably numb the area around the bite for some time. So it won't feel very nice at all. It's not nice to be numb around the bite site, David. No. Right, let's just look at how his legs attach on the microscope. This is a new scorpion, recently found in a shower. There we go. Now you can see all 8 legs there. And they all come out of the cephalothorax. Very small mouth parts at the bottom there. Those are those sort of 2 white facing forward bits. And then, of course, the pincers, also very small. And that is because the tail, which I shall show you now, proportionately is very large. There it is. Ooh. Now, we were asked the other day whether or not the tail could still inflict some sort of a sting when the scorpion was dead, and I said I didn't think so, on account of the fact that the muscles needed to depress the poison gland would obviously not be there or not be functioning. So while the edge of the sting there you can still see is very sharp, I don't think it would be able to inject any venom at all. Isn't that cool? So that's Europlectes. I might just try and flip him over quickly. Let me flip him over. I mean, I'm saying it's a him, it could easily be a her. And the most common, if I'm not mistaken, the most common Europlectes scorpion that we see is the olive bark scorpion, and this is another one. There we go. And you can see the eyes on the top there. There we go. It's so delicate. Isn't that amazing? So you don't really want to be standing on this fellow. You'll get a very sore toe and say some nasty, nasty words. Now, I'm astounded by how dark this night is. At least this morning is. We're going to try and find that hyena again. But while we do that, let's head back across to Treehouse Dam with the spotted royalty.
The spotted royalty will not keep still for 1 second. The two of them are having such a marvelous game. We do apologize for the quality of the light. It's just because it is early morning on a cloudy morning, and I'm not going to light them up with a spotlight. Let's see if we can catch up with the royal pair. They are all over the place. Oh, hold on. What do I see there? I see something there. I wonder if that's Karula. Or is that just Hosana on a mission? Just using my spotlight to double check, just to make sure it is a little leopard and nothing else. Yep, it is indeed. Okay, everybody duck, hold on to your hats. I feel like I'm about to go into an aardvark trap here. There's 3 leopards. Karula's home. There's Mom. There we go. She has returned to them once again. That explains why they all of a sudden got up and left. What perfect timing for us to see the reunion between Mum and her 2 babies. And they seem overjoyed to see her. She might have got something to take them to. She might also just be checking in, making sure that they're okay before she goes off hunting again. Let's go and see if we can have a look at her belly, see whether or not she's managed to have something to eat. Okay, we've got to be very careful here because there's a very large hole. There's a very large series of holes, and it wouldn't be the first time the ground has collapsed underneath me. Hello, Karula. I love seeing leopards in weather like this. They tend to be so playful and so thoroughly entertaining. Sorry, I've just got to navigate this. It's a bit of a tricky spot. Hello. Are you getting a bath, mister? Can you see there, Vim, or is that pole going to be in your way? Oh, Xongile is going to go. Hosana is getting a bath, and his sister is doing something. Stretching. Doing her early morning stretches and having a jolly good cheek scratch. You three. Look how tall he is compared to his mom now. It feels as though he crows so much every time he sees her. Her mom is on the left and her little boy is on the right, and there's her little girl. So for our new viewers, we've been able to watch these cubs grow up since they were very, very young. In fact, Brent saw them when they were very first born. They're now 11 months old, and we've just watched them grow up, watch their personalities develop. We've been so incredibly privileged. Oh my goodness, look at you go! It's also been fun watching them develop their coordination. How's that? It's like an early morning obstacle course, dashing all over the place. Everybody's having a jolly good scratch on this log now. It's the perfect shape. It's got all these protruding pieces to get to even the most hard-to-reach patch of fur. Here goes Xongile. They really are. They're like children on an obstacle course. They are having so much fun. Straight into Mom, who is really just trying to take a bathroom break. She's got two basically boisterous teenagers on her hands. It's hard work feeding two 11-month-old cubs plus herself, all by herself. And I think she's had some tough times recently. That impala kill that she made right in front of us the other day didn't go far at all. Let's not do that. Let's not get stuck. I don't feel like getting stuck this morning. It sounds like a lot of effort. They are streaming out in front of her. I think she's taking them back to a kill. They look almost liquid, the way that they're moving at the moment, the way that they're running through the bush. It's very hard to see. Just hold on a sec. Let's try and get up ahead. The roof makes everything slightly more difficult. Karula, where are you taking your little ones? Please don't say south, although so far we're okay. We're going sort of eastish. Oh, someone's going to come up onto the termite mound. Hello, Hosana. You're going to get left behind. You're going to get left behind if you duck out of the way of the camera. For our new viewers, I know some of you have been asking why it is we duck every time we see the leopard or the lion comes close to the bonnet of the car or the hood of the car. That's not because we are terrified of the animals. It's actually just so that we get out of your way so you can watch the amazing scenes like this without our stupid heads getting in your picture, which sometimes still happens. Alright, now the question is she taking them to a kill? And is that kill on Djuma? I don't want her to disappear. I'm going to try and stick with her for as long as possible, but it is a bit tricky with this roof. We're going to be negotiating some very, very tricky, quite dense vegetation, so we might lose them in a bit. Hopefully we can stick with them. Don't vanish, you lot. Right. As our little spotted cats slowly wander into the distance, we're going to be taking a short break, but don't go anywhere. Stay tuned to find out if Karula has a kill and if they're going to have some breakfast. See you soon. course, we are not going anywhere. We're just practicing our ad breaks for the TV show that will be happening in the US. Oh dear. In the US at 11 p.m. Eastern Time on Nat.Geo Wild on Sunday evenings. So that's what we're practicing for. Oh no, oh no, oh no. Don't let them get too far ahead. Karula does have a tendency to vanish. I've got a sneaky suspicion though she's taking us south of the boundary. Oh dear. Vim, you keeping an eye? Try and see. No idea. I've got no idea where they are either. Oh. There they go. 3 little sprinting figures. Whoa, that was a big hole. Did not see that one. You okay there, Vim? Ow. Okay, well, while I negotiate this area and attempt to reconnect my neck to my spine, let's go back to James in the tent.
I'm just putting my scorpion away in his little jar, and I think that maybe he is actually the olive bark scorpion. I'm pretty sure that's what he was. Now, we have 3 minutes to get back to TV. I'm just going to present normally, I think, except for the last 30 seconds, whereupon I shall do my normal pre-TV performance. Yes. Now, I'm just sorting everything out here for the TV show. I've been relabeling all my jars and putting my new things where they're supposed to be. And one of the new things we have is Polyrhynchus the ant. Now, we did show him to you yesterday, but we showed you an individual who was rather more active. No, come on, Hendry. There we go. Now, look at the spikes between the abdomen and the thorax. That's what we're going for. I tried to show that to you yesterday. But it became almost impossible because the ant was moving around, as it is now starting to do again. Anyway, that is Polyrhynchus the ant. And if it's still alive at the end of the drive, I'm going to have to release it. But for now, it looks like it's on its way out, so I'm going to just leave it there. And here are the rest of the things that we're going to look at. And I just wanted to quickly show you, and we have done this once before. Oh, hold on 1 second. It's over here. I've just labeled it. This claw. Now, that's roughly the same size, I would imagine, as Xongile's claw. There it is. And we think that that came from one of the lion cubs that died of white muscle disease off in the drainage line not too far from here. So that's what that is. And we'll just have a quick look at it under the microscope. But not before we go back to TV, everybody. We've got to go back to TV now. Let me just focus it in and see if the Nkuhumas kept their cubs' nails clean. Right, 40 seconds back to television, everybody. Are you ready? Nothing's going to change. Don't worry if you have just tuned in. We are just having a slight practice. Our TV show tomorrow. Here we go. Benedict Cumberbatch. Benedict Cumberbatch. That just helps to warm the voice, of course. 20 seconds, everyone. I'm just looking for that hyena. 7, 2. Welcome back, everybody, on your second of 8 live safaris here from the western fringes of the great Kruger National Park. My name is James Hendry. Out in the field, Jamie Patterson has already found the leopards, and Brent is still starring the landscape for lions. Stef will be out shortly on his great size 11 boots. Right, there we go. We've done the introduction again. Okay, have a look here under the microscope. There is the lion cub's claw. And you can see this is an important thing to show you on a Sunday because my mother always used to clean my nails on a Sunday evening. And clearly the Nkuhuma Pride did not do a great deal of nail cleaning. And I am convinced that cats are not quite as clean as we think they are. Obviously, there's a huge amount of bacteria underneath this claw, and there certainly was when the lion cub was living. But I think that their fastidious cleaning, and you must watch Karula doing it with her youngsters in a little while, the fastidious cleaning that cats give to each other, I think, is to disguise their smell. Now, will probably be disagreed with by a number of my colleagues, but I'm more and more convinced, especially when we were looking at the lions yesterday, for example, at the buffalo, where they did stink because they were covered in buffalo gore. But why did they clean each other? Why do hyenas not bother with that sort of cleanliness? Why are lions so fastidious about it? Why are leopards especially even more fastidious about it? They don't let themselves get dirty like that, even while they're on a carcass. So think about that, and let's discuss it as the morning progresses. Hashtag Safari Live is the best way to get hold of us on Twitter. I'm not going to give you the email address, mainly because I will then give it during the TV show, and that will be a disaster. So just hashtag Safari Live. You can email us if you want to, though. Brent is still out looking for the lions. Let's find out where he is.
Well, we've abandoned our lion search as the tracks have not come back. Oh, you never know, there could be a Birmingham boy on patrol somewhere. So we are patrolling the northern edge of our traverse area. And I think we might do a little wander down towards Chitwa. What do you think, Brian?
Sounds good.
I think that's an excellent idea. Who knows, maybe there's a Birmingham boy lying next to the waterhole. But at the moment, very quiet on the northern front. Now, I haven't heard any news on Tingana, and he's up and about and all around, so we might find some tracks this morning. So, and the weather is playing a little bit of havoc this morning. We do need to do a quick technical thingy-mabob, so you might lose picture, but just for a second, while Final Control does that.
And a very good morning once again to all of you, and welcome back to your sunrise safari. We do apologize for the attack of the gremlins that seem to affect our stream. I assume it's because of all of the moisture that's been around, all of the rain that's occurred in different parts of the country. But we are back up and running once again, and we do thank you for your patience. Thank you for sticking with us. We're sorry that you all disappeared, or that we disappeared off your screens. For those of you that perhaps have just jumped on board, my name is Jamie. This morning Viam is on camera with me, and we had a wonderful start to our morning, didn't we, Viam? It was a really lovely start. Unfortunately, Karula, the queen of Djuma, that female leopard and her 2 cubs, have crossed to the south. So they've gone into an area known as Little Gowrie. They sat on the boundary for a while and then just moved off. So they were very, very playful this morning. It was lovely to watch them. But I think that Karula has come to fetch the cubs to take them to breakfast. Somewhere on Little Gowrie, she's got something for them to eat. It's actually been quite an eventful morning. While you were away, I got chased by an elephant. I don't quite know why. I just came around the corner and the elephant decided it really didn't like me. And I was talking to Brent at the time over the Game Drive channel, so the whole reserve had the elephant screaming down the radio. I don't quite know why the elephant was so upset with us. He just came charging out of the bushes and trumpeted a few times. We've left that particular elephant herd, as you can imagine, and we're now going to go and check all the way along the eastern and the northern boundaries of Djuma. Now, James has just passed on a message from the tent that he has seen hyena walk past the tent several days in a row, and that's led us to believe that it is worth checking the hyena dens once again. For those of you that are new to our live safaris, this time last year we would go to a hyena den, spotted hyena den, and we would spend many hours of our day there watching the dynamics, watching new little cubs play, and just generally getting very well acquainted with the different hyenas of the Djuma hyena clan. Then they all vanished. They all disappeared. They went to the north. They went onto a reserve called Manyeleti, because there's no fences in between the various reserves that are dotted along the western boundary of Kruger, which is where we are. So they just wandered off and decided to go to a new den site outside of our Traverse area. And we've been talking a lot about whether or not there is the possibility of them returning now that the Nkuhumas are spending more time away from the area. So we're going to go and check. And while we make our way towards those hyena dens, there is somebody else about. He's not on a vehicle, he is on foot, and his name is Stef.
Good morning, yes, I am on foot, and welcome to the bushwalk section of this morning's bushwalk. I am Stef Winterboer, and I have been in Kenya for the last week, which is why you haven't seen me at all. Myself and Xongile and Graham and Peter went to go and do another recce of Kenya, and we have got some huge surprises in store for you later on in the year. But until then, you're obviously with us here at Djuma Private Game Reserve, and today's plan involved me not getting my feet too wet at the beginning of the walk, but I've decided to forego that because Xongile looked at me as if I was mad. But anyway, we are going to show you some interesting things though, and the first of which is this tree here. Now I know this is a silver cluster leaf tree, and you see many silver cluster leaf trees, but what is very interesting on it at the moment is the fact that you can see half of the tree is wet and the other half of the tree is dry. Now that would obviously suggest that the rain is coming from one direction and is only wetting the one side of the tree, and that would be absolutely true. But it comes from a particular direction most times of the year, and from a survival point of view, that helps you quite a lot. If you know the prevailing wind direction and where your rain usually comes from, it's quite easy to get a direction, even on a cloudy day like this, where you can't see the sun. And you do it by just walking up to your closest tree that sits in the open, and having a look at which side is wet and which side is dry. Obviously this side is wet and this side is dry. I know that the rain in the Kruger National Park in this particular area almost always comes from the south and the southeast, and that is exactly what's happened in this case. There's north, here's south, and so now we won't get lost today. That's what I'm hoping anyway. Right, let's carry on. It hasn't rained that much, to be quite honest. It was pouring around about 1 o'clock this morning, came down a little bit and has been sort of drizzling and mist rain since then. And it's not uncomfortable, to be quite honest. It's quite a nice temperature. We've all got jerseys and jackets on today. You know, we're all creatures of the desert out over here, and we all enjoy the warm weather. And so when it dips down to below 60 degrees, it feels like an iceberg has sailed in on the winds. I have a friend that's in Denver at the moment. He called me last night and he said it was minus 21 degrees, which is, I don't know what that it is in Fahrenheit, but about double as cold as what it is hot here today. So crazy. I don't know how you do it. Now, Anne-Marie, you wanted to know, are there any rivers in the area? Anne-Marie, there absolutely are some rivers in the area. So the closest large river that we have is in that direction there. That is the Sand River. The Sand River runs basically north-south. And then we have the Sabi River, which basically runs east-west on the Sabi Sands. That is a little bit further south, probably about 30 miles or so further south of here. Then we have a bunch of dry river beds in the area. We have the Manyeleti River, which lies behind you, probably about 5 miles or so. And then we have a large river system just in that direction, the Timbavati River, which is in that direction, is north-east of here. That's about the largest other river system that we have here. That river flows for a couple of days a year. In days gone past, it was known to flow for years at a time, but at the moment it is a dry river bed which flows after some heavy rains, and it is a beautiful part of this particular world, to be quite honest. But that's my introductions to you. We have got a surprise for you going forward. I've brought Herbie his Christmas present. We're going to share it on walk today, so don't go anywhere. And in the meantime, why don't you go and have a look at James, and he's got a nyala around his tent.
It's somewhere in there behind that bush, a bull nyala. He's coming round this way, and he's very relaxed because we're not behaving like predators. He's definitely seen us. He's standing about Ooh, maybe 100 feet from us. And he's just thinking about having something to eat, I think. Isn't he cool? We will try and get another view. But this, of course, is the interaction that we want to have. Everything is quiet. Everything is peaceful. And the Nyala is kind of just going about his business. Very conscious of what we are and what we're doing. Well, he doesn't know what we're doing, of course. He doesn't realize he's on a live safari, I don't imagine. But he's not panicked or running away or upset in any way, which is fantastic. Exactly how we want it. He's still through there, beautifully disguised. You see him, Dave? I can't see him at all. We don't have very long wire coming out of the tent, so... Oh, yes, here he is. Can you make it this far? Yeah, I think you will. You've got another 1.5 meters of wire left. There he is, just through there. This is wonderful, you know, these things very seldom let you get anywhere near them on foot. Viewers, many of you suggesting I try and get closer by going on all fours. There are two reasons I'm not going to do that. The one is that the ground is very wet and I don't feel like lying in wet mud right now. And the second is that I know that, most of you, of course, are referring to our little experiment that we're going to be doing, a long-term experiment of approaching impala herds on foot, at least on all fours, like a baboon might, and seeing if they don't react to us more favorably. If I were to drop onto all fours now, this Nyala would immediately assume that I was a predator because there's quite a lot of bush between he and I, and he would assume that I was ducking down to get out of his way so that he wouldn't be able to see where I am. And that is genuinely the reason why it would be a complete waste of time here. And it's an interesting one because, for example, if he was a buffalo and we were walking, there he goes, and he suddenly stopped and saw us, look, he's coming closer to us. The very last thing I would do would be to duck behind a bush because the buffalo will then come and look for you. This is unbelievable. Everyone, he's closed the distance to 30 feet. There's an oxpecker there. And now he's feeding. Jay, while we're watching this Nyala feed, and I was talking about a buffalo, you say, have we ever had an animal come up to the tent and scare us? No, it hasn't scared Dave or I. We did have a buffalo scare Taylor quite badly, though, in the middle of the drought. It actually chased her into the tent. She was out pretty much where we are now looking for something. She turned around and she just saw this thing barreling towards her. So she ran into the tent. The buffalo turned, sort of veered slightly towards the tent. There's nothing we could do, and then saw the tent and carried on. That was the scariest moment we've had in the tent so far. Much more scary for Taylor than it was for us. Yes, a lot of heavy breathing after that. This is special. People, that Nyala is only 10 meters from us. There's a very kind of subtle sound of drizzle and the wind coming out the southeast. Otherwise, it's a soundless morning. But for the very gentle kind of rip of the leaves that the Nyala's eating. And then every so often, there's one lone oxpecker around the Nyala, and every so often I just hear the flutter of his wings as he tries to attach himself to a different part of the Nyala's body and take ticks off there. Now, one of the things about antelope that is very difficult to assess is their age. And White Lady Ear, when you're wondering how I could tell the age of this bull, once a Nyala bull gets beyond the age of, say, 4 or 5, it becomes almost impossible because their horns don't change shape. I suppose they might get slightly longer, but I don't know. I haven't spent enough time around Nyala whose ages I do know exactly for me to be able to assess that. This guy's a fully grown bull. I guess his horns might get a little bit wider, but they don't twist like a kudu's do. So a kudu's, for example, you can tell how old it is by the number of twists it has in its horns. It gets half a twist every year. So if it's got 3 twists, 3 times 2 is, David? Correct. He's probably about 6. I don't think that's... I've heard that. I'm not convinced that it's a hard and fast rule, but it's a basic rule. With Nyala, it's probably something, you probably could do it from the number of twists, but they tend to stop twisting when they get to about the size of the horns that this chap's got now. And so once he's beyond 4 to 5 years old, it's very difficult to tell. They've got a potential lifespan of probably about 14, and in captivity maybe up to 20. That seems to be the kind of general norm for most of the animals out here, bar, for example, the squirrels or longhorn beetles. But once they start to get old, they lose condition, and then they get a bit old, and then they get eaten by predators. Stephanie, you're in California, where I imagine the weather is probably better than it is here right now. You say, will that Nyala ever charge us? A Nyala will charge you. Not in a situation like this, though. He's not cornered. Any animal out here, and I mean there are recorded deaths of people from bushbuck, for example. Any animal, if cornered, will choose to fight because they see it as a last resort. This Nyala sees me as a predator, not a particularly threatening one at this stage because he spends time around the camp, so he knows that human beings have never done him any harm before. But what they will do is give you a very hard time if you corner them. Now, he's not in the slightest bit cornered. He can go any direction he wants, and so there's no ways he would charge from there. Well, it would be extremely unlikely. Can you hear the oxpecker going? Psh, psh. This is a most wonderful sighting. I think he's going to come out into the open here, Dave. If he comes slightly round, I think he's going to pop out over here. And the way to do this, of course, is with infinitely small motions, very calm speaking voice, no sudden movements, and just very subtle, slightly obvious movements closer. Sorry. Sorry about that, everybody. Now, just to quickly wrap up my buffalo discussion, what happens is, when I found a tree that I don't know, what happens is that with something like a buffalo, as I was saying, you can imagine if you were a lion, you've seen lions and leopards and possibly your own house cats hunting. If a predator or a potential prey item sees them or they see some prey, the first thing they do is find cover. They get behind something so that they can sneak up on it. If a buffalo or an elephant or just about anything else out here sees you and you want to avoid it seeing you as a threat, the worst thing you can do is get behind a bush like this, because it's exactly what a predator would do. Just listening around behind us. What you do is you just make yourself obvious, and if you want to move away, if you want to increase the distance, you make yourself very clear to whatever it is and you walk away so that it can see you walking away. With that Nyala, we just wanted to stay in view the whole time so that it never looked around and thought, where have they gone? That will make the panic. That was very cool. I think he's still here, actually. Bree, you're wondering about the sharpness of the horns and how they maintain it, and wondering if they do sharpen them on tree bark. No, they don't, they just grow into that point. I've seen them, they do rub their heads against bushes, but that's more for territorial marking. They leave a scent there. They don't have to sharpen their horns. None of the antelope out here seem to have to sharpen their horns. It just seems to be that the point at which, there's bone underneath the keratin that you can see. There's a keratin sheath on top of the horn, and the bone underneath just seems to grow to a point, and from that comes the keratin. You still see him there, Dave? He's just over there behind the bush. Okay. Safari Haze, I'm afraid I couldn't answer this question. I've got absolutely no idea. It's a seriously detailed question. It's a good one. You say, do their horns get fewer twists when there's a drought on? And Safari Haze, I'm afraid I couldn't begin to tell you. I don't think so. I'm not sure that the twists would change. I think possibly the length of the horns might change. I think everything would slow down, whatever growth there was would slow down, but whether that would affect the twists of the length, I don't know. I mean, this chap is just magnificent. Obviously doing the standard issue relieving of himself on sighting me. That's what all animals out here do. Right, well, there's this magnificent Nyada disappears behind the bush. I almost get the impression that he was viewing us in much the same way. He did a kind of loop around in a circle, and he's still doing it. He could easily have just walked off onto quarantine clearings, but he didn't do that. So lovely to have him here, and hopefully we'll have him here tomorrow morning. Jamie has got what Connor described as an extremely wise animal.
An extremely wise looking animal indeed. And of course it is a rainy day and we have our roof on, and therefore the white-faced owls are in the impossible tree today. They have two trees that they sit in regularly. One is very difficult to see them, and the other is slightly more out in the open. And of course I think it's probably actually connected. The fact that when it does rain, they go and they find themselves some shelter in a slightly thicker tree in terms of vegetation. So there we go. Doesn't that owl look so very, very wise? Always with this pair of white-faced owls, you can see the one that is sort of drawn up and thin and quite austere looking, and described in the last time as what did we say, he was a kung fu master or a sensei. He definitely has that look about him. I think it's the sort of the moustachey type beard. And then there's always one that is sitting slightly rounder, slightly more squat, and looks a little bit like an overstressed, overworked academic professor. So our pair of white-faced owls that have become a regular feature on these live safaris, and I stop and I check for them each and every single time I come past Buffels Hook Dam. Now, it's not that they are two different species of owl or two different shapes because it's male or female. That is just what white-faced owls do. They're able to shape-shift quite tremendously. One will draw itself up and look although it seems to drop down now, it's looking slightly more squat. But they can draw themselves up and look very thin. They can close their eyes to almost a slit-like appearance, and it's thought to help with camouflage, so basically to make them look a little bit like part of the tree. And you could see how that might work with the patchy feathers on their chest. They really are truly beautiful birds. And being nocturnal, of course, it is a time for them to settle down and go to bed. It does make me wonder, because this presumably is a mating pair. In fact, it could only be a mating pair. It's not going to be a male and a male or a female and a female. Now, the question is, do they have a nest somewhere here? And if so, where? Because that would be wonderful. Wouldn't that be truly marvelous to watch little owl chicks grow up? There we go. James is thinking along the same lines that I am. And James, you want to know if we've checked under the owl's favourite roosting trees to see if there are any pellets and evidence, of course, of them nesting in that area. I have checked, and I haven't seen any sign of them. And I haven't seen any sign of sort of regular droppings either. Often with owls' nests, especially if they're nesting in crevices of trees, you'll find that, particularly if there are chicks around, you'll see that there's lots of droppings around the outside and often down the side of the bark. And I haven't managed to spot any of that since we've started seeing them regularly again. But I'm always keeping an eye out, and I'm relatively certain that they've got a nest somewhere here. I'm hoping that's the case. Although our little owls, all of our little owl species do seem to have preferred trees that they spend their days in. The pearl-spotted owls we see regularly in the same place, and the same goes for the normal scops owls that we see on a day-to-day basis. And then, of course, our white-faced pair that are quite happily roosting in their bush willow. But James, and all of those of you who are curious about the nesting habits of our white-faced owls, we will be double-checking, constantly checking. I check here every time I drive past to see whether there's any evidence of a nest. That would be truly, truly marvellous. On the reserve where Brent's parents live, we went to go and visit them, and there's a dried up river. It wasn't flowing when I went to go and visit, that you can actually drive through, and there's a big sandy bank, and in that big sandy bank a spotted eagle owl had actually nested in just a slight depression, a slight concave depression in the sandy bank. And that was incredible because the nest is eye line. It's at eye height if you're traveling in a vehicle, and we could actually look in, and the owls were perfectly comfortable with it. The parents would sit and watch us, and you could actually look in and see the little chicks as they were. I only saw them when they just hatched. They were still white and fluffy and very, very small and almost completely immobile. But that was a truly special sighting indeed, and I hope we get a chance. I don't actually know much about the nesting habits of white-faced owls. I'm not sure whether any of the other guides do. I'm sure James knows a little bit. My guess would be that they would roost in hollows in trees. And I can't think where else they would nest, actually. And welcome to Lynn on our sunrise safari. Thank you, Lynn, for sending through your question. You want to know how you can tell male from female if you can't tell it by their shape. Lynn, generally with all of our birds of prey species, the females are slightly larger than the males, and as far as I know, that's exactly the same even with the smaller species of owl. So we get scops, pearl-spotted, barred owlets, all of those little miniature species of owl. I think in those, as well as in our larger birds of prey, the female is slightly larger, but it is a minuscule difference, and it's very, very hard to see. Sitting now, looking with my own eyes, not through the eyes of the camera, if I had to guess, I would say that the one on the right is slightly larger, but it really, it is a much of a muchness, and it's very, very difficult to tell. There's no apart from size, there is no physical difference. There's no sexual dimorphism between male and female white-faced scops owls. Now, the only way that we could perhaps tell is if we saw a female sitting on a nest. And Daisy's mum, good morning to you. You want to know how tall they are. Let me try and work this out and sort of give you a rough comparison. They're slightly larger. Excuse me. They are roughly excuse me. That's actually basically roughly the size of that owl. Maybe even just slightly smaller. So they are roughly the size of your average pair of binoculars. And what would that be in inches? Probably about, sorry, trying to breathe at the same time, probably around 5 inches, give or take. Not terribly good with my inches, but I would guess it about 5 inches high. And that's actually, I'm pretty sure if I went up to that white-faced owl and held this up, it would be exactly the same size. It was perfect. While we look at our white-faced scops owls, of course, each and every white-faced or each and every species of bird has a different developing sort of stages. And Jungle, you want to know exactly how long it will be before the baby birds start to hunt. I'm honestly not sure with white-faced scops owls. Usually with most birds, with a fledgling time, birds of prey tend to take slightly longer than your average passerine. So something like a starling, for example. Now our hardy-daws that we watched the other day, they take 40 days before they are fledged and able to start moving about with the adults. So I would guess at, with the white-faced scops owl, I'd guess it's somewhere around a month before they fledge and start to learn to fly, and probably a little bit longer than that before they start to hunt, but I'm guessing. I honestly don't know off the top of my head exactly when the white-faced owl chicks learn to hunt. It might even be slightly longer than that, just because that is the way in which birds of prey tend to have a slightly longer period. It take a while for them to perfect that whole process of hunting. Look at them, they're both fat now. Not fat, fluffed up. Shouldn't really call them fat. I just mean that they've adopted their slightly more squat pose. So cute. Lacey, you want to know if these owls would be protective over this tree? Would they chase other birds away? Yes, quite possibly. Particularly another bird of prey. That's entirely possible that they would. They would be defensive, especially if they have a nest. I don't think they'd bother too much if they don't have a nest in here, if something like a drongo came and sat with them. Quite often, actually, it'll work in reverse, and things like drongos will come in and chase smaller owls away, and that we've seen regularly. Especially with our pearl-spotted owls, they get chased and mobbed by other birds because they are so very, very tiny. But that's the amazing nature of the shape-shifting white-faced owl. If they do feel threatened, they can puff themselves up and look very fierce indeed. And that's something you might get to see on our live safari. You never know. However, we are going to be taking a short break very soon, but don't go anywhere. We've still got magical mysteries of the bush to show you, and who knows when a big cat might pop out. Stay tuned and join us then. And we are in, as Kirsty said, a fake advertisement break. So those of you watching on the internet don't have to miss a moment of the action. So I'm going to do a bit more research when I get home about the white-faced owl and how long they take to fledge, and see if I can't find out a little bit more about them. What we do know is this is the southern white-faced owl, to be more specific, because there are actually two different species. There's the northern white-faced owl and the southern white-faced owl. And this is the southern white-faced owl, which makes sense because we are in fact in South Africa. So the southern part of the African continent. Right, you two, are you planning on being madly active this morning? Yes, no? What have you got to say? Nothing. They are the silent types, these two. Alright, in that case we shall leave our little couple to go about their morning snooze and go and see what else we can find. And while we do that, I think we'll send you back over to James. Perhaps he knows a bit more about fledgling white-faced owls, I don't know, but let's go and find out.
I went back to camp recently to check on a little enclosure that we'd built for a tortoise that we were hoping would come to the tent for the show tomorrow morning. And David said to me, "Would you mind getting my scarf?" So I said to him, "Yes, I don't mind getting your scarf." I did get his scarf, and the good news for David was that I found it, and the bad news for David is that I'm not giving it to him. It's very snugly warm. Does it match my clothing, David?
Looks good on you, James.
I think so. I think it looks better on me than it does on you. Kirsten says it brings out my eyes. Very nice. Good. Now, the other day, Geraldine arrived home. She arrived back at work, which is where we live, so sort of work home, if you like. And she looked up at the old pool cover that provides our veranda shade, and she said, "Oh my goodness, look at that astounding looking creature." And I looked up and I said, "Oh yes, what an astounding looking creature indeed. It looks to me like a longhorn beetle." And she said, "Oh yes, that must be what it is." I don't think that's what she said, but something, with a conversation or something like that. And under the microscope is said longhorn beetle. I caught it yesterday by means of hitting it off the roof with a with a brush, and it was already in the last sort of parts of its life on account of the fact that the camp has been sprayed for mosquitoes, which means that this thing had taken in whatever it was that the mosquitoes had been sprayed with and had dropped dead. Now, I can't find this exact and very beautiful longhorn beetle. The longhorn beetle, of course, is so named because not quite horns, but yes, antenna. And so it looks a bit like it has long horns. And they are largely wood-boring creatures. That means that they like to dig into wood. And so, well, I mean, lots of you wouldn't like that, of course, because many of you still build in wood in North America. But we quite like them out here because we've moved on to brick for the most part. And the other very interesting thing about it, or not the other very interesting thing about it, but I think I've got a species that's very close. It's got a horrible name. It's called a dumpy longhorn. I think dumpy longhorn is very unkind, but that's the picture I have of the dumpy longhorn there. I mean, I don't think there's any person in the world who wants to be known as dumpy. It doesn't sort of conjure up great images of beauty, and I think this is a very beautiful longhorn beetle. Right, we have 30 seconds back to fake TV, so I'm going to be sort of semi-silent, and we'll open with for the TV audience, which is, well, it's all of you, basically, with this beetle. David, how does that look?
It's tilted to me.
Yes?
Beautiful. Starting to.
Welcome back, everybody, to your live safari on this chilly, blustery day where the African dawn has blessed us with African rain. You're on a live safari, as I said. My name is James Hendry. This is Billy the Longhorn Beetle. Stef is out on foot. Jamie Patterson has just been with the leopards. I'm not sure what she's up to now. She was with some owls recently. And Brent Leo Smith seems to have disappeared off the face of the earth. There are positives and negatives to that. Good. Please do talk to us. Hashtag Safari Live is the best way to get hold of us. Send us your comments and your questions. It'd be lovely to hear from you during the course of the rest of the safari. Okay, we've done our introduction. That's Billy the Longhorn. He's going back in his little jar. Can you see I've labelled my jar, David? I've labelled it Longhorn. Yes, very good. In you go. I have beautiful handwriting, as you can see, everybody. This is my new scarf, which I like very much. I was looking up, reading about the owl, the southern white-faced owl, while Jamie was sitting with them, and it doesn't say any. I mean, the Roberts Bird Book is pretty much the definitive guide when it comes to birds and their behavior. It doesn't say anything about when they start to hunt, but it does say that they don't actually sit up for 7 days. So for 7 days, they cannot sit up. They're totally blind and probably deaf as well. By 14 days, they've got their second bit of down on them, but they leave the nest at 28 days, and by 30 to 33 days, they take their first flight. So in the first week, they can't even sit. But in the next 21 days, they somehow develop into a creature that is able to fly and almost fend for itself. They leave the nest by the time they are 28 days old. I just find that astounding. In 21 days, a bird goes from a totally helpless, sort of featherless... You've seen a newborn baby bird. I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of an amorphous clump of mewling or squeaking beakness. An amorphous clump of mewling or squealing beakness. I quite like that. But 3 weeks later, they're able to fly away from the nest, and I just think that's rather magnificent. Good. Okay. You're all concerned as to what happened to Brent. Brent, remember, is basically feral. So even were he to be stranded out here in the bush, he could probably live in a hole or a culvert or something like that and quite successfully survive. My worry is Brian. Where is Brian? Because Brian, of course, is not quite as feral and so would find it more difficult to survive in a culvert or mitre drain. No, all that's happened is that there's a problem with Rusty, I think, at the moment. I can see, actually, I've got a picture of Brent now. He seems to be coming back up online, so we'll let him tell you about his culvert home shortly. Good. And the other thing I wanted to show you is this hawk moth, not hawk moth, owl moth. And I think that an owl moth has the most gorgeous eye wings. We'll just show you those and then we'll put them under the microscope. They're all over the camp, these things. And they too don't last very long. Cool. Let's have a look here. Wait, Kirsten, sorry. Oh, jumped the gun, she did there. Look at the colours there. Isn't that gorgeous? Sorry, I'm losing focus because the wind is blowing the thing. There we go. Blue, 2 shades of blue, white, copper, brown, black, gold. It's just gorgeous. And let's move it slightly to show you its rolled up proboscis. There we are. There is the rolled up proboscis that this owl moth uses to feed on plant nectar. Isn't that amazing? I think that's very special indeed. I'm just going to try and point to it quickly for you. There we are. I'm pointing with a scalpel blade. See that, David? Very nice. Good. So that's the owl moth. It'll come back to us. Marvellous. And I will just tell you that yesterday I had a very delicious experience with one of these marula fruits, and I managed to crack one open and get the nut out, and I think I might try and do that again and just see if we can't get some more nuts. They were very delicious indeed. Now, Brent Leo Smith, I know many of you were very concerned about him. He seems to be back out online. His well, I'll let you tell him about it. I'll let him tell you about it. Here he is.
Well, it's got a little bit more damp. That's one thing that's for sure. We had some little tech difficulties. It looks like they're all sorted now. But we've been through Chitwa. We followed the tracks of a female leopard. Unfortunately, she crossed south out of our traverse area. So now we're on the northern edge of Cheetah Plains, and I'm just hoping for Nkanyeni or Vutomi or quarantine in this area. So I'm just having a quick look. No one else has been through here yet this morning, but I'm starting to worry a little bit about the weather. It seems to be a lot thicker down this side in the east, so we'll see what happens. It seems to be coming from the southeast, this drizzly weather. It's not raining per se just yet, but there's quite a bit of precipitation in the air. Now, Carl's wondering if anyone's seen Shadow. Carl, I'm not sure. You must remember, I only got back yesterday. And, well, the one thing I'm certain is no one's seen Shadow down here. We're very far in the east. This is Nkanyeni's territory. So, unlikely to see her here. But you never know, stranger things have happened. But no one has seen Shadow for a while, as far as I know. I'm pretty sure, as I said, that given birth and she's hiding out. Oof. Now, this is a truly miserable weather, but truly miserable weather means big cats could be on the move. They do like it a little miserable. But no sign of any of them at the moment. Maybe the cheetah boy is out on the open areas. Ooh, flappity flap. Okay. Now we are coming out into the first of the large open sections. Oh, nothing. I'm quite interested to see how the new buff pan has got on with a bit of rain that's been had. I wonder if there's any water in it just yet. Maybe a puddle or two. And of course I'm checking all the big marulas. For Nkanyeni, that is her name, marula tree. Isn't that a sorry sight? A very wet, very bedraggled, but still popping black-bellied bustard. Come on. Rain or shine, looking for a girlfriend. I just heard you pop. No, I'm getting shy now. Silly bird. You can't see me like this, so I'm not at my best.